Hey, Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all the things. We are festive in the season.
We certainly, that's me. I'm very festive all the time.
Yeah, all your power is drained away. Like after Halloween hits, you just become weaker and weaker.
That's true. Look how gray I am. Look how fucking gray I am.
And that's for the Patreon exclusive girlies who can see how gray Gavin is. Hey, everyone. This is The Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject, such as an actor, director, or a mini genre, and we take 2 weeks, we watch as much as we can, do a ton of research, and then we give you a history, and we tell you what we like and what we don't like.
The reviews are mixed. That's the whole point, girlies.
Very mixed.
I don't want to hear any clapbacks about people saying that we said some negative Nancy things, because it's baked into the concept of the show. Okay, there are going to be some negatives.
That's
girls.
true. We started this in 2017, so I almost said 2007. We started this in 1917, and our first podcast came out on the Victrola.
Yes, and I miss the old days.
Yeah, our sponsor was in fact Edison.
They were great. They were great before they got canceled.
Yeah.
Gavin, it is our last regular episode of the year.
I'm gonna miss you.
I know, babe. Because I'm leaving this mortal plane. I'm out of here.
And I'll remember.
What is
Vitamin
that
C
song?
Graduation song?
Oh, I was like, graduation from what?
I don't know. From existence, from
From
life.
existence.
Physical
what if they
form.
played graduation at funerals? What a weird fucking thing. My God.
And now for Pop's favorite song, Graduation by Vitamin C.
Oh, love Pop. Okay, do we have old business we want to get to?
We do have old business real quick. Just to talk about what we began last week's episode with, our sort of heavy-handed area in which we talked about homophobia in the state of the United States and how scary it is. We've received a lot of really positive comments. We got a really nice email from our listener Vincent, who has written in before, and really lovely, and a lot of supportive things that have been said to us about what we said. So great, thanks. That's and we're happy to have you guys listening to this and all
we
that.
just wanted to say thank you, and we hear you, and you hear us, and we're just a family full of listeners. So thank you, truly.
I'm creeped out by that. I know we're just a family full of listeners.
Just like Santa, we're listening.
I don't like this anymore.
You don't like that? Oh, you don't like that? Before we get into this episode, we need to wrap up, just like a present, our last episode, which was all about Don Cheadle. That made a lot of sense and was funny, Gavin. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it, babe.
I love that we were like, we don't really have a Christmas theme this year.
No,
but you're still rolling it in. You're still rolling it out like a Christmas cookie dough.
Thank you. I said I just watched the Rockettes. I'm in the spirit. I'm vibing, okay?
I saw you doing those high kicks.
Honey,
I'm
my
very
kicks,
impressed.
Very high. Very high. That's on the OnlyFans. We asked you guys to go online to our Twitter and vote for your favorite Don Cheadle movie, and the results are in. Tied for last place, surprisingly, is The Guard, and I just called it it's like his War Machine era things. So all War Machines, those tied for 19%. And second place was Talk to Me, which was Gavin's pick at 23%. And honestly, love Talk to Me. Excellent choice. And then first place is Hotel Rwanda with 38%. I don't think it's a surprise.
No.
I'm surprised that War Machine fell after a strong start. It fell so far down.
Yeah, I was a little shocked that Talk to Me made second place, but I'm glad people have seen it, and I hope more people see it, honestly. And same for Hotel Rwanda. I mean, these are great movies that, deserve to be seen by people. And Don Cheadle is one of our best working I mean, I truly believe that, especially after spending those 2 weeks with him. See his stuff, and don't just think of him as like that guy that pops up in things, because he is so much more than that.
Yeah, our previous guest, Mitchell Beaupre, mentioned Devil in a Blue Dress was their favorite.
I love that movie too.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
excellent choice.
We had a couple people writing in about Boogie Nights, and they had someone writing in about Miles Ahead, which is incorrect, but that's fine.
Thanks for playing.
But thank you so much for replying with that. And thank you to Don Cheadle. That was a very lovely 2-ish weeks of watching. Truly a pleasure to go down his filmography. But we are moving on, and me and Gavin, at the end of last week's episode, we were like, how can we really, end the year with a bang? How can we really, we were poring over some ideas. There's a lot of films coming out for, award season. So there was a lot to choose from. But we said, you know what we haven't done in a while and that we really like doing? Let's go back.
Yeah.
Back again.
We closed our eyes. We did the Professor X Pride time travel thing.
Yes. We're in the days of future past. And we landed on none other than Miss Marilyn Monroe. Who else, I feel like when you talk about Hollywood fucking legends, it's hard to beat. She's hard to beat.
She's unlike anybody. I was thinking about this. She's unlike anybody we've done on this show before, because even if we talk about these icons, these idols, when we did Cary Grant, when we did
Audrey
Hepburn, when we did Joan Crawford, they're icons, they're legends. But the thing about Marilyn Monroe is she is sort of the zeitgeist. Like, everybody knows who Marilyn Monroe is. Marilyn Monroe's image is still used to sell products. Like, this is a woman who died very early in her life, and still, we're 60 years later almost, or almost a full 60 years later after her death, and still people talk about her. There was a documentary that just came out on Netflix. Like, she's an obsession. She truly is, like, more than, like.
Are you talking about Blonde starring Ana de Armas?
No, there's like the lost Marilyn Monroe tapes or whatever. I don't know. I didn't watch it. I set a rule for myself for this episode, which I didn't tell you about, but that's one of the name of the game. We try not to talk to each other about our subject. So
we're being tricky little fuckers.
we bring fresh perspectives.
Yeah.
And my rule was, because when I was like, oh, there's all these like TV movies, and I was like, I don't want to watch a movie about her life. I don't want to watch, like, I'll like listen to things, I'll find interviews. I was like, but I'm not interested in a dramatization of her life, because she was so picked apart by everybody. Like, literally everybody wanted to have a say about her. I mean, that's like, Tony Curtis, who was in Some Like It Hot with her, used her death to claim that he had an affair with her, and there's like no proof of this. So it's just like, you really sort of have to pick and choose your, like, who you believe, and so but all of this is to say, like, she's really fascinating because she is sort of in the mind's eye. I think it's so dumb, but I keep thinking of, like, The Craft, in The Craft, when they're like, if God and the devil were to play a football game, Minot is the football field that they would play their football game. And that's what Marilyn Monroe is to every other star that Hollywood has ever produced. She is the base point. And celebrity, it's fascinating. It was so strange to spend these 2 weeks with Marilyn Monroe. And like, I've seen a bunch of these films, but like, to really dive in, it's so much more than Smash on NBC.
I mean, I was gonna say, I only watched Smash.
You were like, let me be your star.
They keep moving the line, but I am running right along with it. No, but yeah, I mean, she is the blueprint for so many starlets we have today. I am disturbed by how much I thought about Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian. I wouldn't say I'm like fans of either of those women, but like, I certainly do think that they have
Right.
to hell and back with what they have given up for the celebrity that they're trying to chase.
I don't think there's really a comparison in terms of acting level.
Right. No.
But I kept going back to the Lindsay Lohan of it all as well, too. And it's that sort of, the right after we did the Lindsay Lohan episode, there was the anniversary of the Bimbo Summit, which was Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, and Lindsay Lohan like getting
at a
shot
cab or
over and over by a paparazzi. Like,
they were like in a limo or something. Like,
right. And like people ran with it, and that was the New York Post headline, I think. Yeah. And it's that same sort of tactic that was used against Marilyn Monroe when she was alive, that she was thought to be dumb and like totally just underappreciated because she was beautiful, and so she couldn't possibly have had a thought in her head.
It's interesting that people associate if you happen to have blonde hair, naturally or not naturally, however, or if you're not out of shape in some way, you're absolutely dumb. I mean, you're considered dumb. I don't know why that is. I think it's a very limited view. And it doesn't matter what the person, what they look like, what color hair they have. Nonsense. Or if they happen not to be out of shape. I mean, my time's to come. Gravity catches up with all of us.
I will say I listened to a podcast that I'm not going to name because it was kind of sensational, and like I was like, I can hear exactly what you're trying to do, and like
that's exactly what I mean. Is it's you really, really have to, because even that final Life magazine interview, it like you can tell the editors. I don't want to come at a journalist, even though that journalist is probably dead at this point too, but like they had a point of view.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted to sell, regardless of what the truth was. And we'll never know the truth. And like, I also want that to be,
very clear.
We're not like, oh, the mixed reviews. We know the full story. We do not. But we're going to give you the story as we know it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much conjecture, conflama. Like, I swear to God, this fucking podcast was like, did Robert Kennedy kill Marilyn Monroe?
Oh, I don't know.
We're just bringing that up. I don't know. Maybe. Was it the mafia? Was it Dean Martin? Perhaps. Like,
we're just asking questions.
Like, literally,
is the moon made of cheese?
Yeah.
Who can never be sure?
But I would like to focus on, obviously we can't talk about her without talking about some of the scandal and like, that stuff. But I want a majority of this to be about her on the screen, her celebrity, and all those good things. Because she was so much more than the fucking like mystery of how she died.
Right. And she was also a smart businesswoman, especially towards the end of her life. That's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about. We basically wouldn't have independent film without her. She started her own production company at a time in which everything was the studio system, because she didn't want to. And it's funny because we talked about that in our Cary Grant episode about him leaving the studio system was a huge deal. But like, she literally was like, no, I'm going to start making movies that I want to be in.
Yeah. She said, fuck you guys. I'm out of here. Okay. With all that being said, why don't we jump into our rewind? Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jean Mortensen. I think maybe people know that she was Norma Jean. But
most people have seen the Ashley Judd, Mira Sorvino, Norma Jean and Marilyn HBO original movie from the early 2000s.
They also know Britney Jean, famously Britney Spears. It's all connected. Bimbo Summit.
Do you know Diane?
She was born June 1st, 1926 in Los Angeles. She had what can only be described as a turbulent and tragic childhood. The identity of her father was never confirmed. Her mom had a good idea of who it was, but never confirmed, never, And on top of that, mother suffered from lots of mental illness type stuff. And really, Marilyn, she was basically moved around to like a million fucking different foster homes.
Yeah.
She was in and out of the system.
And I refused to go into the orphan home. I mean, I said, I saw the orphan, I could read at 10, orphan, and I put my feet down on the sidewalk, and they had to drag me in. I said, I'm not an orphan. And so I thought, well, she's dead somewhere, and then later some people said, well, it's better you forget about your mother. I said, but where is my mother? And I said, well, it's better you forget about her. She's dead. So I was told that. So whatever, invented, I don't know what they mean by it. It was all kind of vague. I couldn't find out anything for sure.
Her mom barely saw her, like on the weekends sometimes. She just didn't know why she couldn't be with her mom. But mom was checked into hospitals, It was really tragic and sad. Though, Marilyn had said, when she was a baby, she remembers being happy and, she did have some good times. Back then, and foster families were always taking advantage of having kids. Just they're being paid to have kids, and they would just have a million fucking kids. And she remembers going to the movies when she could.
So I was taken there in the morning. I'd wait till the movie opened for 10 cents. I would go in, sit in the first row, and I watched all kinds of movies like Cleopatra with Claude Colbert. That I remembered very well. I'd sit there and I'd see it over and over and over and over again. Till late at night. I was supposed to come out at dark, but of course I didn't know when it was dark, just before dark, because with their conscience, they didn't want me to come, at night, but I never knew when it was dark. And besides, it was much nicer there.
She'd come home and reenact movies, and she would get on the bed and feel tall, and and she, I don't think she ever wanted, I don't think she knew she wanted to be an actress. It is kind of like she loved being other people. Her mom was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Yeah. And that's in fucking 1934. So like, who the fuck knows if that really was
right? Exactly. That's the thing is like, yeah, it's so tough. Her mother was also kind of in the industry. She was like industry adjacent. She worked as a film cutter, so like there were ties to that. But like you mentioned, it was really the movies that did it for Marilyn. And there's so many stories about, like when she was a kid, Cary Grant was one of her favorite movie stars.
Right.
Or when she was in the orphanage during the time periods that she was left in orphanages, she would sleep with a picture of Clark Gable underneath her pillow because she would imagine him as her father.
Yeah.
And these are men that she would go on to work with in films.
Yeah. It's wild. So she was in an orphanage for a little while, and then for whatever reason, the orphanage decided she'd be better off with a family or in a family environment. So thus, I do think it was like 16 or 17 different foster homes.
Yeah.
It was a lot. She ends up getting married when she's 16 years old. Jumping ahead a little bit, I don't think a lot of people know that she was married before her two famous marriages.
At the time of her like rising fame, it was one of the things that people used against her. They're like, oh, she's this hick who got married when she was a kid. Right,
exactly. They were like, who the fuck is this, dumb bitch? But like, I think in the mythos of her, you think of Arthur Miller and Joe DiMaggio.
Oh,
and like,
absolutely.
And what's funny is there's fucking interviews with this guy, James Doherty. He was basically like a neighbor. California child protection laws prevented who her family was from moving her out of the state. And so they were like, well, if you're fucking moving, we're going to throw her back in the orphanage. And they're like, LOL, what if our neighbor's 21-year-old son marries her?
Yeah.
And so they get married, and there's interviews of him who's like, he sounds kind of just like a loser kind of guy. Like, really, she has said, they were just such a big mismatch. He was so boring. She was like, absolutely not. But interviews with him, he's like, she never should have been a working woman. She
Right.
needed to be a stay-at-home wife and mom. I was a good husband to her. Yada yada yada. It's like, okay, bro.
It's like really rough stuff, really dark material. We didn't even mention, and this is a trigger warning, that she was.
Oh my god, I forgot. I mean,
yeah,
I did forget, but yes,
she was sexually assaulted as a child, and she was already shy to begin with, and this led her to developing a stutter.
First time was at the orphanage, and then later in my teens, I stuttered. It just, I don't know how it happened. I just stuttered.
yeah, and like not to hit the nail on the head, like she was, before she was a teenager, she was, being sexually assaulted and raped by these men and these families who were supposed to be taking care of her.
Yeah.
And, so there was like from a very early age, this darkness and
This sexualization of
Yeah.
her too. So she was getting it, from such a young age, like this idea that, her, I don't know quite how
her
to put it in
worth,
the word,
her
but
power,
yes,
everything
worth.
is connected to sex, and
Right.
no kid especially should be fucking put through
Right.
that.
And we're gonna end up having. I mean, we have to talk about sexuality when it comes to Marilyn Monroe. Like, you have to. We're gonna talk more about that later. But like, this is. I mean, it's something to keep in mind when you think about. I don't know. It's frustrating to like listen to the way she was treated.
Yeah.
And like, just as a society, it'd be better if we like treated people like people and kind of just realized that like everybody's a person.
Right.
I don't want you listening to this to be like, wow, like literally one of the most famous people in the world, and you expect us to be sad for her. But like, I don't know, take a deep breath and consider that she was like a real life human being. She had blood flowing through her veins. She breathed air. Like, she was a human.
Yeah. And I think like, life handed her a shitty fucking deck. And, there are people who go through the foster system and, live full, accomplished lives, who don't experience horrible things. There are people who do experience horrible things and still live, fulfilled, accomplished lives. And Marilyn certainly did have an accomplished life. Was it full? No, because she was dead at 36. But, it certainly was a big part of her childhood, which is fucking sucks. Like, no one should have to go through that. To make it clear, also, she dropped out of high school to become a housewife. Like, she was with this fucking guy, James Doherty, for a little while, though she said she was dying of boredom during the marriage. So she moved to Santa Catalina Island because he was a merchant marine. This is 1944. She goes to work because the war is starting, and she works in a factory where they're like making fucking like plane parts and shit. Like,
Right.
It's very Rosie the Riveter vibes. And just like, I love the story. It's so casual. It's very like, what? There is a photographer who is sent by the Army, the Air Force, to take pictures of the girls, and because they're gonna, lighten the mood of the boys.
Essentially, they're like, they want to send out pinup postcards and to send them to the troops.
Like, look at the girls who are supporting the troops by building the planes and shit. And he is like, excuse me, you are so gorgeous. Like, we need to get you. Like, why are you not a model? Also, Miss Marilyn is brunette, honey. She is not a natural blonde.
I know.
Okay?
I mean, obviously, the image of her is like bleach blonde, and like it was never a natural blonde. But it is funny to think about, like, oh yeah, no, she was not a blonde.
Fully, yeah, that is not, honey. The bottle blonde begins here, and it begins and ends. Okay. In 1945, she says fuck off to her husband who has been deployed, and she moves out on her own, and she signs a contract with the modeling agency. And they were like, oh, you are our pinup girly. And she, I think, very quickly is like on 40 different magazine covers. And she is the va-va-voom hunty. To become, this is also the era when she's like, oh, I'll sell more if I straighten my hair and bleach it. And so that the persona of Marilyn Monroe is slowly being made. I mean, and to be clear,
and it's not like an overnight thing.
No.
Like this is a
she's still Norma Jean right now.
Right.
She's still Norma Jean, but she has the magnetism, the charisma that clearly this fun photographer saw. And then the brains are starting to like fire when she's like, oh, well, people love fucking blondes and, you know, straight hair. Through her modeling, she decides to do a couple like test the waters in the acting world. She goes to Paramount Pictures and has a shitty interview, and they're like, no, 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 no. She does a screen test with Ben Lyne over at 20th Century Fox, and they were like, it was very lukewarm, but they didn't want RKO to sign her, so they just like kind of signed her to so like they wouldn't get her.
Yeah, a 6-month contract back then, which was, you know, we've talked about the studio system before, but just to reiterate, Hollywood in this era was run by studios, and you would get signed to a studio and they would control your fate. So a 6-month contract, she could easily not been cast in anything. That right. She was just on retainer, and no other film studio could use her during that time period.
Right. And so Lion, he's like, okay, well, we do need to change the name because Norma Jean is too country bumpkin. Like Gavin mentioned, everyone was like, who is this hillbilly girl who got married and like literally dropped out of high school, like loser. And so he picks the name Marilyn after Broadway star Marilyn Miller, and she chooses Monroe, which was her mom's maiden name. Thus, Marilyn Monroe was born. She officially gets divorced in 1946 from this guy who was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Working women? Working? I don't think so. Yeah. And so for those 6 months, she's literally just like dance lessons, vocal lessons, acting lessons.
Lessons. Yeah.
She is putting in the work to become like an actress. She has a little bit parts here and there. I didn't see any of these. I don't know if you did, Gavin. Dangerous Years.
I didn't. I found an interview where she talked about Scudda Hoo, Scudda Hey.
In a picture called Scudda Hoo, Scudda Hey, I had one word to say. I said, hello. But it went fast. In fact, I cut it out.
So these are things that we passed over in the interest of time. But, you know, she's enrolled in the Actors Laboratory Theater. And that's where she says that was my first taste of what real acting was like. And she was really enthusiastic, but all of her teachers were like, no, they thought she was too shy, too demure.
It's interesting because acting is like her working on acting is a huge through line out throughout her career. Like she truly believed that she needed to study and continue, and she had acting coaches on the sets of almost all of her films, and it's interesting because, and I hadn't put this together until just this moment, it was just but like she is a working class woman. She starts from a working class. She got a job out, you know, she dropped out of high school, got a job, got married. Like she thought this is work.
A job.
This is a job. It's a job. And I'm going to become the best at it that I can be. It's fascinating. I don't know why I'd never thought about that before.
Well, it's fascinating because also she ends up becoming the face of everything working class is not, you know?
Yes, 100%. And hated by women. That was so I did read from this really great book. It's a very famous book called Heavenly Bodies, Film Stars and Society. And the first third of this book is all about Marilyn Monroe's body, essentially. But like from an analytical sort of like the impact she had on society, and there were studies done that even though Marilyn Monroe was often in these movies that were like, she's a girl, she falls in love with a guy, like there's a musical component. These were not films for women.
Right. No.
Absolutely were not. Women did not see the value of, like, because she was so not what the average woman looked like.
Right.
That she had become unknowable for most women.
Yeah.
And so these were films for men.
Yeah.
Even though they were what we consider nowadays, like, and obviously
movie musicals.
yeah, exactly. And obviously, like, you know, gender, it's broad
generalizations.
Yeah, broad generalizations, exactly. Like, but like these were movies that men went and saw, because even though she's singing a number about how diamonds are a girl's best friend, she's also shaking her tuchus.
It's a fantasy. So Fox does not renew her contract. 6 months go by, and they're like, we don't see it, toots.
Yeah.
Get out of here. And so she's back into modeling. She's doing little bit parts here and there. But she was like, no, I love acting and I need to make this work. And so she continues studying. She does a couple things here and there. She meets an executive at Columbia, and Columbia's like,
yeah,
what's going on over here?
Yeah.
At Columbia, they're like, you should really do the Rita Hayworth scenario. And so she had already gone blonde. That's there. They do platinum bleach blonde.
Yeah, just platinum amount.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I've this is a complete sidebar. Have you ever dyed your hair?
I have not. I think about, like, is it too late for me to go through my gay crisis and bleach my hair?
I did. I'm a big Halloween fan, if you know this. The year I was the Mad Hatter, I had to do platinum blonde for my hair, and I bleached it 3 or 4 times within the span of a month.
Jesus, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. And my hair was like straw at that point, but it was platinum. But it takes dedication to keep that up.
I'll say, how did your hair like survive?
and just think about back then, the chemicals they were using. So
fuck. Ugh.
Scalp burning.
Yeah. So she does Ladies of the Chorus with Columbia. I saw this movie. She's one of the chorus girls. She's
advertised as the lead, but really she's the daughter of the lead. And what it is in 48, when it came out, it didn't make an impact, but Columbia, and this is skipping further ahead, but we're going to go back after I do this. In 1952, once Marilyn Monroe's star started to rise, re-released the film.
They were like, hey guys, we have a movie with her too.
Yeah, exactly. Put her name above the credits, and really, like, it's a lie. But
it's a lie. I mean,
she's good in it. She's fine.
Yeah,
she's like, it's cute. Like,
it's very like LOL, because the woman who plays her mother is maybe 5 years older. Maybe. I don't fucking know.
She's 7 years older, but like doesn't. Yeah, trust me.
No,
like
they both are gorgeous leading ladies. They literally put her in the Manila Luzon like white streak wig and said, "Oh, that's the mom. That's mom.
That's mom, guys."
Thank you for a most enjoyable evening. Who is it? There's no name. No name? Well, that's strange. I wonder who it could be. Oh, probably some politician who's bashful or married.
She screen tested for the lead role in Born Yesterday, and which ended up coming out in 1950, but this was in 1948, and she doesn't get it, and then her contract's not renewed. Yeah, and but that role, like, I think. Judy Holliday stars in that movie. It's a great movie. I love it. And Judy Holliday wins the Academy Award that year.
Gag!
And it's, I don't know if Marilyn would have. And people often say that Judy Holliday wins the award because she's splitting the vote of the 2 leads from All About Eve were put up against each other, even though one of them should have been supporting. And so they think that Judy Holliday like won because the vote was split for the other. But even so, I don't know if Marilyn Monroe at this point, based on what I saw in Ladies of the Chorus, could have gotten that Academy Award. But funny enough, Marilyn Monroe is in All About Eve.
Yeah, I mean, she has a little bit part, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's doing her bits and bobs.
Also during this time, she's she goes back to modeling after the end of her Columbia contract, and just bringing this up, she starts doing calendar work, and this is where the very famous nude shots of Marilyn Monroe are taken.
What I did not know, the first Playboy ever.
Yeah, but against her wishes. Like, not, she didn't. Like, they are photos that Hugh Hefner purchased from somebody else.
Correct.
And also, what's interesting, this book brings up, this was a widely distributed calendar. It's not like people had never seen these photos before. They had seen these photos, but like now it's in Playboy, and like it's legitimizing Playboy as well too. Yeah, they're very tasteful. They're nothing like you would expect. And what's the other great thing that this book brings up is that their art poses, but she provides such a naturalism to them, which is why it's so tantalizing and interesting, because it's really that intersection between art and
sex.
Exactly. Sex is a perfect. I was going to say smut, but it's not smutty.
No, it's not smut.
It's not smutty at all. But it's like, tantalizing in the way that it's unnatural, but also like incredibly innocent and inviting. Yeah. And that's the other big thing that you're going to see in her career, innocence.
So you mentioned All About Eve, which was released in 1950. She's also a small part in the Asphalt Jungle. I told Gavin I turned this off after like halfway through. I was like, I cannot get through this.
I saw it in the theater. I really liked it, but I was shocked that she has mentioned several times that it's one of her favorite roles. She's barely in the movie. In the movie.
Barely.
John Huston, though, who would go on to direct her in one of her final performances. So
she is able to get a 7-year contract with 20th Century Fox. She's back at Fox now. So she starts at Fox, 6 months, over. Columbia does one picture, over. And now she's back at Fox.
She's knocking on that door going, Daryl F. Zanuck.
Hello.
I'm back.
She has 3 roles in 1951. They're small. As Young as You Feel, Love Nest, and Let's Make It Legal. She's just kind of sexy gal on the side.
Yes.
I don't know that there's much to say about either of these. You have
no. There's not. I mean, she's ornamental. She's there to look at.
Yeah, and I think people are like, oh, she's very. I mean, because of course she's fucking Marilyn Monroe. She's beautiful. She's so it's not hard for her to be beautiful in a movie that's just asking for her just to do that. I thought this was funny. She was declared Miss Cheesecake of 1951. LOL. Dita Ritz.
It's a direct lineage. What?
She begins dating Joe DiMaggio in 1952. And he, at the time, is the world's most famous athlete. She's the baseball star for the New York Yankees.
I'm not a sports person, but I truly thought for a moment there you weren't going to say baseball. That you were just going to be like he played some sport.
He was an athlete of some sort. No, he was retired at the time, but he was very famous, a big personality in New York. It's also at this time, though, that those photographs start coming out. She had taken them in 1949. They are released in 1952. It's kind of funny. I mean, when you think about it, this is giving very this is Vanessa Williams. This is this is a very modern thing that happens. I also thought about not to bring up these women again, but Kim Kardashian and Paris Hilton, both their careers were essentially started with sex scandals.
Yeah, they owe them to
and even though Marilyn had been working a little bit, I would not say that she was quote famous yet. She was on the rise. These photos reemerge, and the studio is like, okay, well, let's just lean into it and say that you were a struggling, poor little girl who needed to make it through. And the reaction was positive. People were like, oh, this girly, what she had to do to become a starlet, you know, like.
I mean, it certainly didn't help the people that put them out, especially the Playboy of it all, because they didn't get her
permission.
Blessing or permission. It was literally like.
Yeah, they were like, the public reaction was like, she's been taken advantage of, you know, like how awful of these men. It was, I mean, surprisingly, they did not blame her for this.
Yes. It was during the shooting of the movie Clash by Night that this really started coming to a head. This is a film with Barbara Stanwyck. It's based off a play. I don't know if you got a chance to see Clash by Night. I really liked it. And what's really cool is Marilyn's playing like just a very normal woman, gorgeous, but like a very secondary character. But it, really made the film difficult to shoot because there was press constantly there and they were trying to get glimpses of Marilyn Monroe. And once again, she's not the lead. Barbara Stanwyck's the lead. Fritz Lang, famous German expressionist director, in the later part of his career, directing this film. So there's like names behind this movie, and the press is there just to see Marilyn Monroe.
Where does he get all that energy?
I don't like him.
He's kind of exciting and attractive.
Who's attractive? Who's exciting?
Earl!
Who?
Joe, you're strangling me!
Who's attractive? Who's exciting?
You.
That's better.
Don't Bother to Knock and We're Not Married also are kind of rushed out at this time to capitalize on the scandal.
I loved Don't Bother to Knock.
Tell us.
So Don't Bother to Knock is, and listen, maybe not kosher in 2022.
Okay.
But essentially it's this film where she plays this young girl who her uncle works as the elevator man at this hotel, and he's like trying to set her up with a job, watching this affluent parent's kid for an evening at the hotel so they can go out. And what is unknown to them and everybody else who gets sort of brought into her world is she has actually just finished a involuntary institutionalization. She is not well. She should not have been placed in this position where she's caretaking for this girl, and mentally is maybe and it's a role that I think people wouldn't associate with Marilyn. It's what it's in the end a very sympathetic ending for her, which I enjoyed, but like essentially sort of like bad girl. Like there's a scene where she's invited a man up to the hotel room, and the little girl that she's taking care of is like awake now, and the little girl is like leaning out the window to see something, and she like goes to push her out the window, and the man sees her and stops her by like saying her name, and she like pulls back.
Oh my God.
It's a very satisfying and nuanced performance from a very young Marilyn Monroe. And I was sort of shocked. I was like, this is a picture.
Yeah.
So they didn't really know what to do with her yet, and therefore they were allowing her to take chances. And I'm kind of thankful for that.
In this period, she's trying to like push her range of acting, but she is being typecast. The studio is very controlling, which is not new. Like, we know that this is how it works. But she's in Monkey Business with Cary Grant. She's like kind of the third person in this movie. She's not one of the leads. She's kind of like, both Cary Grant and Ginger Rogers are fine in the movie, but she's kind of the only part I really enjoyed of it. Not because I just thought it was like I was fine when the movie was bashing men. I was like, when the movie was like, men are dumb, especially young men. But when it was like, and then women are babies and like are irrational.
Irrational and emotional. And then suddenly Cary Grant's in race makeup. And I was like, what is happening? No, like
it's a very like, I mean, it's a screwball comedy, but like it gets very screwy.
It's very minor Howard Hawks. Gotta say.
They said, what if the monkey throws the potion in the water?
Yes.
I thought Monkey Business is very light.
thin on the ground, thin in the air.
This is also unfortunately the time when she starts self-medicating because she is so unhappy with the lack of control in her career, the way they are wanting to package her. When I say they, I mean the studio. People are saying she's unpleasant to work with because she is asking for more. She is, she would show up too late to the set, or she wouldn't show up at all.
She would ask for the right to improv scenes, and this was at a time in which you truly did not do that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to take into consideration is that she did suffer so much from this low self-esteem and this stage fright and this want to get everything correct. I mean, she was doing everything from, working with Michael Chekhov on her acting, studying mime, very Don Cheadle.
Don Cheadle.
It would have been more helpful had people sort of checked in on her mental well-being instead of just being like, oh, late again? Like,
why can't she just be hot and do the thing we're telling you to? And I mean, to be fair, she was used to being on like the photo shoots where she had a lot of control, and she was the one deciding the way you were going to look at her in these pictures. She had control with the poses. She knew what like looked good, and on movie sets that just was not the case. And
there's such a focus, not even just from the studio on her body, but from the press on her body.
Well, Marilyn, speaking of measurements, are they still the same as when you left? Have you gained weight? Have you lost weight?
I think I'm about the same.
About the same.
Yes.
I also think it's interesting. Another thing that this book brings up too is 1953, the Kinsey Report for Females comes out. The Kinsey Report was a very
are you gay or not?
Yeah, well, it was a sex study. The Kinsey Report for Men came out in 1948, but nobody. It was such a male-driven society. It's still a male-driven society. People weren't really that interested in like female sexuality. And so this report comes out and is talking about the female orgasm, and this coincides like perfectly with Marilyn Monroe's rise as like a sexual being on screen. For better or worse, because sometimes she is just kind of a prop.
Yeah.
And that's and so like it's not that society's necessarily interested in that, but it is fascinating to think about how. And then I think the other interesting thing to think about with that, specifically culturally, is the 1950s is kind of the lowest point for American feminism, because you have the 40s where women were getting jobs because the men were at war, and women were literally in factories doing the jobs that were considered quote unquote male jobs. You also had box office stars like Katharine Hepburn and Barbara Stanwyck, who were these tough, staunch women in pants, and the 60s you get with the sexual revolution and women's lib, and so you have the 50s in the middle, which is sort of this turn back towards like, well, women are mothers and they should be in the kitchen and they should be taking care of their husband. They should have a cocktail ready for him when he gets home from work and his slippers, and ask him about his day. And
that literally was everything she fucking didn't want with her fucking idiot husband.
Right. It was what she didn't want, but it's what the studio wanted from her. Like she is this innocent, sort of subservient image for men. And it's fascinating because, like, you had to sort of want to keep her from it was never like a masochistic male gaze when it came to her, because you wanted to keep her from danger because she is so innocent and so pure, even though she is this sexual being. She's such an interesting dichotomy of themes.
So like we're about to get into like her really blowing up. 1953 is a big year for her, but like, to be clear, she has already started taking a lot of pills, amphetamines, barbiturates. She was an alcoholic, and she's alleviating all this anxiety from being in the limelight. being sexualized. There are reports that she was bullied on set by directors, male co-stars who thought she was a dumb bitch who couldn't act. She fought a lot of people who thought she should just be a model. She's just pretty and you're not good at acting. And that's before she becomes like the full Marilyn we know today, and the roles that I think people really talk about when you talk about her. Niagara is the kickoff. Great name for a movie.
Absolutely.
First of all, Niagara, I thought was also a little light, but I think it looks incroyable.
Yes.
The colors of this movie, like they said, girly, those red lips are gonna pop. She looks incredible.
When people talk about the great screen pairings, no one ever talks about Technicolor and Marilyn Monroe.
No, we don't talk about it enough. We certainly don't.
And it's so stunning. She's the villain of the movie. She's the femme fatale. She never gets to do a role like this ever again in her entire career. And she's maybe not fully prepared for it, I will say. I like the movie. I think it's probably a little less light than you. I don't know where your gauge is on it. But
I was just like, imagine like what if you went on a honeymoon and like you end up as having to like fucking figure out a murder mystery.
I know.
And like help a not pleasant man run away from his like murderous wife. I mean, I guess it's just like, I would say she's barely a femme fatale. She wants to kill her husband to run away with like some hot guy, but like she's not really killing him. She's like asking the hot guy to do it, and then the rest of the movie.
That's what a femme fatale does. That's what
but like she's not like
watch Double Indemnity, Louis.
But I wanted her to be a little bit more like smart, active? I guess.
Oh, okay.
And active, I guess. I don't know. For a lot of it, basically spoiler, it doesn't work, and now the husband's like, I'm coming for you, bitch, and she's like, oh no.
It's funny that there is the most famous scene in the movie is literally 30 seconds of her walking. And it's the way that her hips swayed.
Mm-hmm.
They used that to advertise the movie, to get people to go see this film.
I don't know what movie it was, but there is a movie in this era where she talks about one of the lines. It asks her like what size she is, and she says, "I'm a size 12." And I don't know how women's sizes works, but I know 12 is not considered skinny by today's standards.
Right.
And I was just like, fuck, like, back then a size 12 looking like Marilyn Monroe, like was fucking it. And, in the Paris Hilton era, it was literally like, are you a size 0 or 1?
Yeah.
A 2?
As it was unfortunately called heroin chic.
Heroin, yes. And this is the exact opposite of that. It is full-bodied glamour.
Yeah, it's hips, it's ass, it's breasts.
Yeah. It was, I would say the critics were very on it, but people really were just like, the color of it all was just far too much for the people to turn away.
Former subject of our show, Joan Crawford, did call the film that her role in the film was unbecoming of an actress and a lady.
Wow. Joan. I love that. I mean, that Joan was just like, what can I say to like fucking insert myself into this? Her second movie is Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, with Jane Russell. I just got to take a quick moment to say I had never seen this movie in its entirety. Jane Russell is
so fucking good,
fucking star.
Oh my god!
Holy shit! Like
it's sort of unfortunate that Gentlemen Prefer Blondes has become such a Marilyn Monroe centerpiece, because genuinely, Jane Russell is kind of the star of that movie.
Yes, and she's so good. I mean, there's I was already gooped and gagged. And then at the end where literally Jane Russell has to play Marilyn Monroe's character, I was like, this is the levels. I mean, both of them are very, very good. The movie is very, very funny. For better or worse, this movie cements her as the dumb blonde. Like,
yes.
The persona of Marilyn Monroe is cemented, like solidified. It is all here. diamonds are a girl's best friend. I mean, in the movie, she doesn't know how to wear a tiara. She doesn't know what a tiara is. She's very like, but and the breathiness of the voice.
I was gonna say, and really, it's the genesis. I mean, she's had that voice. She's been working on it, but really, it's that baby sort of. Everything.
What do you mean?
Yeah. Wait, did you say diamonds?
Yeah.
You know that, and
a diamond miner.
which, by the way, that gentleman's diamond mines. It's definitely not ethically sourced diamonds.
No,
just putting it out there.
Those are blood diamonds, baby.
Yeah, that man is Elon Musk's dad.
Yes,
but,
absolutely.
She did have enough presence of mind to ask for the line towards the end to be inserted about not being dumb.
And if you had a daughter, wouldn't you rather she didn't marry a poor man?
But I was...
You'd want her to have the most wonderful things in the world and to be very happy. Oh, why is it wrong for me to want those things?
Well, I concede that... Say, they told me you were stupid. You don't sound stupid to me.
I can be smart when it's important, but most men don't like it.
That's Marilyn Monroe. That's not the scriptwriters.
This movie, to me, is very profound and incredible because it's like how many movies where the two girlies are not fighting, they are not, you know, they have nothing that the other wants. They are both supremely talented, supremely gorgeous. Neither of them, you know, are really making digs at each other for anything. And they have each other's backs the whole way through. So, yeah.
It's also a movie with the gayest musical number ever recorded, which is Jane Russell's like song about love. But
it's also her song about being lazy. She's like, I can't lift things. I don't do that. Like,
and
let's
it's
just sit down and hang out.
A room full of muscle men in short shorts.
Yeah. The third movie is How to Marry a Millionaire with Betty Grable and Lauren Bacall. Also, just like supremely talented women.
Yes.
It's funny because Lauren Bacall probably is the more, at the time, was the more vaunted, bigger, but
still very young. I think the other thing that's like not because Lauren Bacall's always playing all these really mature characters. She comes off as kind of like the mother of the group, sort of, but she's also very
she
young.
has that face though. It's a very severe face.
Yes.
It's a fun little romp. Again, kind of like, you know, Marilyn is playing ditzy girl. I mean, all of them are basically trying to scam men and marry rich.
I really love her performance in this movie, and this is the famous apocrypha because it's actually not what she says in the film, but the like men don't make passes at girls who wear glasses comes from.
Well, you know what they say about girls who wear glasses.
What are you talking about?
Men aren't attentive to girls who wear glasses.
Did you ever try it?
Rewatching it this time, even though she's so funny and her timing is so good, I was a little annoyed by how dumb they made her. I was like, this was the one, like, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. You can almost get away with it because it is such a like fantasy, you know, it's such a technicolor. And the speaking of movies where the color pops, I mean, the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend with the bright pink background, like but this here, because it feels like a more realistic world, and even though it starts off with the orchestra and everything, I was kind of like, can we give her something else to do other than be like, I'm so dumb that like I'm gonna just be blind because I don't want to wear my glasses. Yeah,
I will say she looks fucking great in glasses.
Absolutely.
And they give her the sexiest diamond encrusted glasses, and she's like, "Oh no, ooh," you know, all that. If she was like a little bit famous before, she is the it girl to end it all, you know.
Yeah, this is her bright shining star moment. This is, she's printing money, baby.
Yeah, and speaking of which, she at this time is like, okay, Fox, like, I need more money. And they're like, LOL, we got you on contract, girly, and we're not gonna, we're paying you what you're paying you. And so she she had a very tumultuous relationship with the head executive, Daryl Zanuck. He did not like her. He was like, you aren't that good. I don't get it.
But I think that's all power dynamic. I think that's all like, I'm sure he was like, oh, you won't fuck me, but you'll, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And in 1954, he literally suspends her because she did not want to be in another musical comedy. That was The Girl in Pink Tights. Her and Joe DiMaggio get married in San Francisco.
And also during this time, she goes on tour entertaining the troops in Korea. And she has talked about how like this era for her doing this, going and entertaining the troops, being live on stage, was one of her favorite things that she did out throughout her entire career. Once again, it's the same thing where it's like she's not under anybody else's thumb. She goes out, she makes the jokes, and she's doing all those like this is the other thing that bothers me. People talk about these dumb blonde isms, but they don't seem to understand that like you have to be funny and smart to turn a phrase. Famously, when asked about the nude portraits, they were like, "What did you have on?" Yeah. All these pictures were taken, and she was like, the radio. And it's like, yeah, that's a smart, quippy comeback.
That's fucking funny.
One of her best jokes in Korea was, she'd be on stage and she'd be like, I don't know why all you men love these sweater girls so much. Take the sweaters off, and what do they have?
I think people, it's very clear because there's so many people who try to do knockoff Marilyn, and it's like, it's just not good. It's, you have to be witty, and she had it in spades. She has what Dolly Parton has.
Yes, and yes, 100%. And that's the thing is, and there are like, I don't want to chalk up these people's entire careers to being knockoff to Marilyn Monroe, but this is literally people are trying to come up with their own Marilyn Monroes, and this is where you get the Jane Mansfields of the world, the Mitzi Gaynors of the world, and these are people that are doing the blonde bombshell, but nobody's doing it quite like her. This book posits that like it's possibly because both of those people are like too knowing, right? Like there is none of that innocence with them. Versus where Marilyn Monroe like finds a way to like put it at a distance. This book even says when she was doing The Prince and the Showgirl in 1956, the Evening News wrote, she really is as luscious as strawberries and cream. And Norman Mailer in 1973 wrote in his book about her, Marilyn suggested sex might be difficult and dangerous with others, but ice cream with her. And I like these are not great comparisons because they're diminishing her as a human being to like give the but that is part of the appeal of Marilyn, right? Is that she's this sweet confection that everything's gonna go great with,
yeah so she's like basically away for a little while. She's like, nope. Finally she settles the situation with Fox, comes back, has a new contract, and she stars in The 7-Year Itch.
Which is exactly what she wanted. So in the end, this was a very smart publicity move for her. I mean, with the publicity of her doing the USO tour, I'll just say it. It was a good career move to marry Joe DiMaggio. Yeah. And so like, so she comes back and she's getting a bonus of $100,000 and she's starring in The 7-Year Itch, which is what she wanted in the first place.
Yeah. This is another movie that, it's a huge fucking hit. I had never seen it before. I saw it for this, and I don't know. To me, I had problems with it just because it's so fucking centered around a fucking man and like his delusions, Michael. Like, I'm like,
I'll go even further. I absolutely love Billy Wilder. I don't like this movie. I've just never liked this movie. And part of it is they go out of their way to neuter the play because the play is about an affair. The play is about this man sleeping with his neighbor while his wife is away. And in the film, because of censors at the time and the way the code worked and everything, you couldn't have it be about that. So it's like an imagined affair. And at that point, I'm like, I'm really sitting through 2 hours of this?
Like, what the fuck is the point? It's kind of funny also. So this movie is where we get the famous shot of Marilyn, the subway going underneath and the dress going up. I didn't realize that is barely even showed in the movie. They show
Right,
like her
yeah,
ankles.
you
maybe.
you don't see the full body. You see below, and then you see above, but you don't see. But it was such a publicity stunt when they shot it, because most of the movie wasn't even shot in New York. But they did go to New York to shoot this. They invited the press. They invited people to come along, and it was a big spectacle. The pictures were everywhere, and Joe DiMaggio was like, I hate this. he was like, I hate like how much you belong to the public. And
yeah, I mean,
and like, I also don't want to paint him as a saint. He was also, by all accounts, very physically abusive and just,
a philanderer, all the things.
Yeah.
I mean, for better or worse, that image is like one of the most iconic of modern fucking history.
Yes.
Like, I think, though, and maybe this was her, if she wanted this, I don't see that much growth or like range in this. I mean, I will say she like, it seems like they were asking her, maybe this is what she wanted, but
I think
the whole like, I'm just innocently here and like what, like an affair with me, like it's kind of a gross movie.
It is gross.
It's asking us to like believe a lot of things, and like it's asking a lot for an audience, and the whole idea like, oh, 7 years, that's when everyone like was gonna fucking cheat or whatever.
I think she just saw it as a movie for quote unquote adults after doing like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire, when she's playing like, but yeah, you're right. Like, I think she just took a look at the subject material and didn't realize that in playing this role, she was just still playing
it's very similar.
Oh, it's because I took your bed and you had to sleep on the couch. I knew I should have taken the couch. I just feel terrible.
It's not the couch. It's my wife. She found out about us and she shot me.
She what?
5 times in the back and twice in the belly.
You're just having a bad dream.
We get in 1954 Otto Preminger's River of No Return.
Yes, it's a Western. She called it a Z-grade Western.
Sweetie, she's not wrong. That movie, it's
real bad.
I remember the main
I do think
guy,
she's gorgeous in it, though.
gorgeous. She looks good on a raft. There's a moment when like the main good guy you're supposed to be rooting for basically sexually assaults her in the forest.
And what's fun is that's the poster for the movie.
Right, like him on top of her.
Yeah.
But because like it's assault and she's like clearly saying no. But then like a scene later, she's like, don't worry about it. He's apologizing or whatever. And then they fall in love or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I don't like that. After that, she comes, there's No Business Like Show Business, which I saw today, which is a fun little, nugget of Americana. That's like a Irving Berlin. Yeah. I mean, like this movie was made just to shoot like set pieces. Like,
I love that she leaves the movie about 40 minutes before it ends. And I was like,
she does come back at the very end to be like, but I do love your son. She did not like this movie.
No,
she did not want to do
this.
I mean, the contract that she had signed was like, well, if you dropped out of that other fucking like movie musical, you're going to have to do this one. I think she probably, I mean, she's not the star of this. She doesn't have to do a lot. She's just kind of like, on the side. I like the movie though. It's fun.
Donald O'Connor's great. No chemistry with her whatsoever, but I mean,
no.
That might be other reasons.
Homosexual activity. Because DiMaggio hates what the fuck is happening so much with her, they get divorced after 9 months. So they don't even make the fucking year. But it's because this year of her, I mean, A Star Is Born, baby, he is losing stock and she is gaining stock.
Yes.
People want Marilyn Monroe and he's like, okay, absolutely not. After, wrapping up 7 Year Itch in 54, this is when she leaves Hollywood.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm going to start my own production company.
Yeah. MMP, also known as Marilyn Monroe Pictures. And like I said before, she wants to make movies that she wants to be in. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it doesn't fully go quite the way she plans because she still needs a studio to distribute those movies.
Right.
And in order to do that, she has to sign another contract with Fox, basically being like, she gets one for her and one for them. And so like she's not fully free of the studio system, but it's really a landmark deal. And she is, to misquote Jay-Z, she's not a businesswoman, she's a business woman. And that's...
yeah, I mean, like this is, people say like this was instrumental in the collapse of the studio system. Like she's
creating independent film.
Yes, it's fucking crazy. While she's doing this, she's in Manhattan. She's studying acting. She literally becomes besties with Strasberg.
Yeah, doing the Lee Strasberg method, like hanging out with his family, his daughter, his wife Paula, who are giving her like private lessons at their home. And
yeah, she also is casually dating Marlon Brando, and then also meets Arthur Miller, who is one of the like great American playwrights. You just saw Death of a Salesman.
I did. I
Hello.
literally just saw the new Broadway revival of it, and it's amazing. And a lot of the stuff is still revelatory. Some of the stuff is still very 60s, but you can't help that.
This is also the era communism. Ever heard of it?
Here's the thing: is Miller hung out with communists. Like there's he had friends who were fucking communists, but that shouldn't be a thing that keeps you from work.
You're right. And also, I read that, Marilyn was very close to like joining the Communist Party, but she definitely was sympathetic and like was dibbling dabbling with communism. And to the point, like the FBI is fucking investigating all this shit. Like there's a lot of politics going on. They get married in 56. And I think Arthur Miller was like probably the best relationship. Even after they ended their relationship, he, looked after her.
He treated me as a human being, and he was a very sensitive human being, and treated me as a sensitive person also.
So she signs this other contract with Fox, like Gavin mentioned. She legally changes her name to Marilyn Monroe. That had not been done yet. Her first film under the new contract is Bus Stop, which is a little bit more dramatique. She's still playing a like saloon showgirl, which a lot of her movies are that. But it definitely, I mean, this movie is, again, talk about a tonal fucking shit show. Like, this woman is abducted because a man doesn't know how like to behave.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And
it's giving incel behavior, honestly.
It is interesting because she does, because of her contract with Marilyn Monroe Pictures, even though it is a Fox film that she is doing under this contract, she does have final say on director, cinematographer. So she like handpicks her team of people, but I think the script needed work.
Yeah. It's basically like I do enjoy the, like, this movie is kind of like a weird fuck you to men, and like those older movies where it's like the men just sweep the women off their feet and like,
it is to a point, but
it doesn't stick the landing.
Yeah,
it doesn't stick the landing, but like for a lot of the movie it's like, God, men are fucking crazy and stupid. And because his whole idea is that this cowboy hick who's like, oh, so all these movies are like, I'm only 21. I'm like, sir, please.
Right.
But anyway, he's like, I'm going to meet an angel and she's going to be mine. And
that was the other thing I was going to bring up is the angel, the idea, this just cream, this whiteness, this, like
purity.
Yeah.
But she's like,
I was
LOL.
not a fan.
She's like, LOL, I've been fucking and I told you no. Like, what do you mean we're getting married? And he's like, yeah. He literally like throws her on a bus and like is attempting to take her hostage to marry her and live a life together. And it's like,
and listen, there's great moments in it. She has a really good monologue about having to marry somebody at a young age and like.
Well, you see, I've been going with guys since I was about 12. Honest? Honey, I almost married a cousin of mine when I was 14. But Pappy wouldn't have it.
I never heard of anyone married so young.
Down the Ozarks, we don't waste much time.
She's also trying to do this like Ozark accent, and to me that I was like, I'm glad you're trying to stretch that talent, but it's not there.
Well, everyone, I mean, so here's like a quote from a review. Hold on to your chairs, everybody, and get set for a rattling surprise. Marilyn Monroe has finally proved herself as an actress.
Yeah.
She gets a Golden Globe nom.
I think that's deranged. but hey.
I don't see it, babes. I really don't see it.
I don't.
Her first so that was for Fox, and now her first under MMP is The Prince and the Showgirl.
She goes to England to do it with Laurence Olivier.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get it. I watched this and I thought, what is this about? And what is everyone doing?
It's about an hour and 50 minutes too long. That's my opinion. Yeah, I was like, it's an alleged comedy, but where are the jokes? Yeah, there's no laughs. Her and Olivier don't like. I think they're both good in the movie, I guess, for what the movie's going for, but they don't have a ton of chemistry together. He directed it, but he was awful to her the entire time. Like at one point, he told her, "Can't you just be sexy? Like, can't you like?" He's one of many directors who like threw her acting coach off the set, and she refused to show up until her acting coach was brought back. Just was vile and vicious to her the whole time. And then, you know, upon seeing the movie later, was like, she was fun to watch on screen. And it's like, yeah, thanks. I appreciate the production values of the film. I will say, as a director, I think there's a weird, he's really trying, there's a lot of unreality to it. Like when they take the coach through the like, and it's all fake. It all looks really fake. And then there's the shot of them at the ball and everybody's doing the choreographed dance number. Like, I was like, this is more interesting to me than anything that's happening between these two characters. I mean, literally the name of the movie explains the plot. She's a showgirl. He's a prince. They fall in love.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. They like try to play psychosexual games with each other.
Yes.
For laughs. LOL, I guess.
His son wants to depose him.
I guess there's nothing left for me to do but to take off all of my finery and slip quietly out of your life forever.
What?
I said, I guess there's nothing left
No. Before that, you translated. Do you speak German?
Sure.
Then you heard this message.
Oh, yes. But I'm not going to tell you what it was. So don't excite yourself too much.
She is still taking a lot of pills. This is the era of like any woman who has anxiety or anything, it's like amphetamines, uppers, downers, candy corns. Like it is, you know, just a lot. She allegedly has a miscarriage during this time. Unconfirmed. We don't know. There was also, I mean, this is also her first production, you know, and so there's a lot of just complications, difficulties. The movie was, you know, kind of met with a meh.
Yeah. She takes an entire 17 months off, which is a lot of time to be taking off when you're like really burning that bright. When, you know, this is like a machine, and to like shut it down for so long, but like you mentioned, there's a lot of personal problems, you know, that doctors think she might have also had endometriosis that kept her from being able to have kids.
Yeah, she had a ectopic pregnancy, which is fucking horrible.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the kind of fucking shit. Like that's why, one of the many reasons why we have abortions, because, you know, like it was an unviable pregnancy.
She also ends up having to buy out her business partner for Marilyn Monroe Pictures, making her the sole head of Marilyn Monroe Pictures.
Yeah. So tough time. She comes back in 1958 with perhaps one of her most lauded, well-known movies, Some Like It Hot. It's on Broadway now.
In a very different version.
Yeah, we talked about this movie for our Drag on Film episode.
We did. It's a good movie. I rewatched it again today. I like it a lot. I still, you know, It's very of its time, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not going to get into anything too deep in terms of gender or...
Well, they were trying to like recapture the glory of like the light and fluffy movie musicals of, you know, Gentlemen from Four Blondes and How to Marry a Million, like all those stuff like that was really what made her, you know, and she was kind of like, oh, I don't know, like it's another dumb blonde thing. Arthur Miller basically was the one who encouraged her to do it. Her husband said, yeah, you know, they were also willing to pay her 10% of the film's profits on top of her standard pay.
Right. And she also really wanted to work with Billy Wilder again because she had a really good time on 7 Year Itch, even though, you know, it may not be our favorite. But then that relationship falls apart because she's blowing lines and having to do take after take, famously like 47 takes of introducing herself. And
right. It was not an easy production.
Yeah. Aforementioned Tony Curtis, like, claims that it was like kissing Hitler, kissing her due to the number of retakes, but also like he did explain later that he felt his performances decreased the more takes they did, even though hers were only getting better because
unfortunately the star is beginning to like flicker out, like, and it's due to a lot of things. It's drugs, it's alcohol, it's anxiety, it's, you know, the public, it's the media. But this movie, you know, comes out, it's a big success critically and commercially. She won a Golden Globe. You know, I think that's maybe one of her only awards that she ever won.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be 25 in June.
You are?
That's a quarter of a century. Makes a girl think.
About what?
About the future. You know, like a husband. That's why I'm glad we're going to Florida.
What's in Florida?
Millionaires, flocks of them. They all go south for the winter like birds.
Oh, you're going to catch yourself a rich bird?
Oh, I don't care how rich he is, as long as he has a yacht, his own private railroad car, and his own toothpaste.
You're entitled.
And after Some Like It Hot, she takes another hiatus until she makes Let's Make Love. I saw that today. That was, I mean, I think maybe the most fun part of this movie is just like the set piece of her doing the like boys.
Yeah.
I can't like boys.
Or like My Heart Belongs to Daddy. Love.
Oh my God. My Heart Belongs to Daddy. The gag of this movie is that they were like, we can get Gene Kelly in here. We can get
Milton Berle. Like,
yeah.
She herself really wanted to work with, and I'm going to butcher it, but Yves Montand.
I don't fucking know.
Who's the lead? It was his first English language role. I mean, the real secret key there was not that she wanted to work with him, but that she wanted to sleep with him. And that they start an affair on the set of this movie. Also, the press goes wild about her weight, which is why the My Heart Belongs to Daddy number takes place mostly in a sweater. And I think it's so funny because when she takes it off, if you look at her body, like she's not a heavy person at all.
She looks gorgeous.
Absolutely amazing, radiant, beautiful. I don't know. Like the seams are starting to show.
Yeah. The movie does not go over well with the public. People call it very vulgar. I just think it wasn't as funny as it was trying to be.
Yeah. It meanders, especially towards the last half.
Yeah. Truman Capote really wanted her to play Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Producers were like, absolutely not. Her last movie is John Huston's The Misfits, which Arthur Miller had written for her.
Yeah.
It's a very dramatic role. It is miles away from anything she had done before.
Yeah, it is truly unique in her career. It is, she plays a woman who's out in Reno to get a quickie divorce. She meets an older cowboy. This is played by the aforementioned Clark Gable. And yeah, it's a relationship drama. It's literally a movie about addiction and aging and sadness. I mean,
and
it's
like
sad.
and traditional things going away. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like life moving on without you, you know, like you being left behind. I can't say that I enjoyed watching the movie. It's kind of like a dour watch.
Yeah.
But you know,
it's funny because I agree with you, but I also think it's absolutely brilliant. Like, I think, and it's interesting too, because, you know, the other thing that's happening while on set of this movie, her marriage to Arthur Miller is falling apart. And so he's like rewriting the script as the movie's going on. It's getting more and more bitter. People talk about Marilyn Monroe's behavior on this movie, sometimes not showing up to set, sometimes being late. The thing that they don't talk about was Clark Gable was very kind to her about this. He recognized that there were some issues going on and famously said, like, why do I care if she doesn't show up? I get paid regardless.
right.
John Huston had a gambling addiction, would stay up all night gambling his money away, and sometimes wouldn't show up to the set. People were like, oh, well, she was still having an affair with Montand, but Arthur Miller was having an affair with his assistant and then eventually one of the photographers that was working on the movie. So, like, no one is innocent in this situation, but because Marilyn Monroe had this reputation, she gets the blame for it.
Yeah, it was all, you know, toxic. Her drug addiction was so severe that her makeup had to be applied while she was still asleep under the influence of barbiturates. They had to stop filming for a week so she can go to detox.
Yeah. I will say, and once again, take this with a grain of salt, because I've not been able to confirm this by like a third party source, but I did find a second party source that said that was also like, they kind of sent her to detox so that John Huston could recoup some of the money that he had gambled away. So it was like kind of a ploy to get the studio to put up more money.
Right. And all that, you know, Houston said that her acting was incredible, you know, that it was real emotion. I mean, and this movie asks a lot from her emotionally. You know, there are other women in this movie, but they're very tangential. There's three men who are all, in some sense, are asking this woman to like save them from their own demons. And she is just like trying to fucking, I mean, the movie is about her like actively trying to get rid of a fucking husband. And these three guys are just like, oh, baby, well, you know, and let's go fucking kill some horses or whatever.
Children are supposed to bring you together, but what if they don't, you know? I've known of so-called happily married couples. One time, the wife was in the hospital to have the baby, and the husband was calling me up. I mean, he was calling me. They're still supposed to be happily married.
I guess you believe in true love, don't you?
I don't know, but they'll invent a way that you don't have children unless you care for each other. Because the kids know the difference. I always knew the difference.
Her and Arthur Miller divorced before the movie's even out. It's the movie's released and it's a flop. You know, critics and audiences didn't get it. Now people really appreciate. I think right now it's had a second, third appraisal, and people really enjoy it. Enjoy, I think, is the wrong word. I think people recognize the significance of the movie and the artistry of the movie. But at the time, it was just like, no. And so, like, her career is just, like, on this downward spiral. And she's basically fired from the last movie she's going to make, Something's Gotta Give.
Yeah, it's a George Cukor film. You can actually find the 37 minutes worth of the film that with her that was made on YouTube. It's actually kind of an interesting curio to watch. I watched it. It's not a movie though. And, you know, famously this film was going to have a nude scene, which that exists in that bit. Would have been the first time a mainstream actress appeared nude on screen. And yeah, she was let go because of her quote unquote bad behavior. They replaced her with Lee Remnick. Dean Martin, who was her co-star, was like Marilyn or nobody. They rehired her, and then she died.
Yeah.
A man's wife spends 5 years on an island with a strange man,
Would you like it any better if I knew him?
and it slips her mind.
Well, I was going to tell you, but I know how upset you get about little things.
Little things.
This is the era right before she dies. She does her famous "Happy Birthday, Mr. President."
Yes.
Gag.
She actually did that during the filming of Misfits. She was like, I'm sick. And then she went to go do that.
Right. And it kind of, again, I don't know how much I want to get into fucking JFK and
I don't think we need to get into it at all. Yeah.
It's just people did not react well to it. They thought it was a stunt. It backfired on her.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
People claim that she was doing it to kind of force his hand in their affair, their alleged affair. I don't fucking know. She dies at 36.
Her live-in housekeeper.
Right. Her Eunice fucking finds her, and she's naked, splayed elegantly on some fucking sheets. And
she couldn't get into the room. She calls Marilyn Monroe's psychiatrist. He breaks down the door. They find her dead.
Right. Her psychiatrist, who allegedly also she was having a sexual relationship with, which fuck that guy.
That's not how you patient. No.
They found her naked in bed with a bottle of empty fucking pills and a phone in her hand. This was a woman who was in need. This was a woman who, literally just needed someone to take care of her, to be kind and show her fucking empathy. And
I think the thing that always makes me the saddest is I think she needed more friends.
Yeah.
I think that's truly it. And I think a person in her position, an actor who is that famous, it's impossible to have more friends.
Because I have very few friends. Although I like people, but for friends, I like few people.
It's first reported that it is suicide. I think in the end it was like unsubstantiated suicide or some shit. I don't fucking know. Whatever it is, she, like, the Misfits came out not even a year before, it was a huge, shocking end to an icon who she was able to make herself into this icon in 5-6 years of when she was like at the top of her game. Obviously she had been working for longer than that, but that star burnt so bright and so fast. It's just a bummer how it ended. But I think, unless there's anything else you want to get into before we move into our picks.
Sort of what I was getting at the beginning. She didn't die. Like she did, like in the public mind, she didn't.
Yeah, she did.
She's still with us to this day, and it's really fascinating because there's no one like that. You get close. When we talked about Audrey Hepburn, I think
I was just thinking that Audrey is probably the closest to that.
Yeah, but it's just fascinating. I mean, and everybody, everybody wants to be her. We wouldn't have Madonna without Marilyn Monroe. We wouldn't have, it's fascinating. But I think that's a good place to leave it. And we should move into our picks.
Let's do our 1-star reviews first. For me, I think it's got to go to 1956's Bus Stop. I think it has something interesting to say. Unfortunately, it is a product of its time and cannot fully say it. And I think she is reaching for something perhaps that is not yet in her wheelhouse. It's, and this is a movie where she is still like a showgirl. She's dreaming of going west to California and becoming an actress. And unfortunately for fucking her, this loud, idiotic cowboy, Beauregard, just like storms into town and, like I mentioned before, is on the hunt for his angel.
Yeah. He's like a virginal 21-year-old idiot.
Yeah. And a lot of the movie is like his older friend, Virgil, being like, you can't talk to women that way. That's not how it works. And he's like, well, you mean? I can do whatever I want. I said I was going to get me an angel. Like, it's fucking crazy. I just remember this. Her name is Cherie, and he keeps fucking calling her Cherry. I'm like, this man can't even fucking... And she keeps saying, like, my name is Cherie. It's Cherie. It's not Cherry. To her specifically, I think, like you mentioned, the accent is shaky, quaky. I think, some of it's unfortunate just because, the movie is taking a stand against like this fucking guy. But then at the end, he just says, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh my God, you could say you're sorry. Well, color me wet because let's go, girls. Like, and she just abandons her hopes and dreams to go with him. And, I had some issues with it. And it's also sucky because like this is the first movie that she does with her production company. Right.
Though this is still under the Fox contract. This is her production company, so she does get the final say in terms of director and everything, but it's still Fox was like, here's the movie we want you to do.
There's a lot of this movie where she's running away.
Yeah.
A lot of this movie is her trying to get out from this man, and
this is the defense I'll give that portion of it. She's very heavily into the method at this point. Strasberg and his wife, and they've really ingrained this idea that like you sort of have to live your parts, and I think that's really where this fails, because there's stuff in this script where that she could really dig into her own personal life. I don't think she was wanting to face a lot of that stuff either. Right. And so it's a very surface level performance. I think it's a very bad script. And, I'm a little surprised that this was your 1-star review, because I really thought you were going to go with something else, but this is also my 1-star review. I hated this movie. I truly hated this movie. And I agree. There are moments where like you're getting the tantalizing tip of something more progressive, and you really want it to push in that direction. But I mean, he like physically, like not sexually, but he like physically assaults her at the end of the movie. And I was just like, oh no. Like
the moment where they literally like all of the people that this man knows have to conspire against him so she can escape. Right. She does escape. And then he finds out where she is at the fucking bus station, and literally climbs over a fence, snatches her, puts her over his shoulder.
Like a caveman.
Yeah. And is like, Cherry, I don't know where you're going, baby. And like, it's human trafficking level shit. Like, they're now on a bus, and she's sneaking to the front to try and ask another woman to please help her because the man sleeping in the back is abducting her.
Right. There is a darker version of this.
Yes.
That like is way more interesting. But because it's 1956 and it's Technicolor, and it never finds a way to get to that level.
For crying out loud, will you leave me be?
Well, ain't that your suitcase?
Yes, that's my suitcase.
Grr! What'd you bring it in here for? Cherry, I'm asking you a civil question. What did you bring your suitcase in here for? Now tell me.
You keep away from me, Bo Decker.
Oh, well, George, you keep out of this. This is between me and Cherry. Was you trying to fool me again? Is that what it was?
Take your hands off of me, Bo.
I think the other option was I just really did the 7-year itch just does so little for me.
It's so funny because that's my other option too, and that's the one I really thought you were going to pick. So
I honestly could go either way on these. We can just split it in the half and say we both picked half of these movies, because the 7-year itch, I think, again, is like they were weaponizing Marilyn's like persona in this movie. Like who would be the woman to like lure away the man, 7 years into the relationship? Oh, why, it's Marilyn Monroe, of course. And she's just so stupid and doesn't fucking understand, like has no agency. And she's just like forever going to be the temptress.
More so to that point, her character literally doesn't have a name. in the movie.
I can explain everything. The stairs, the cinnamon toast, the blonde in the kitchen.
Now, wait a minute, Dickie boy. Let's just take it easy. What blonde in the kitchen?
Wouldn't you like to know? Maybe it's Marilyn Monroe.
They're trying to wink at everyone. And it's just, I mean, the fucking movie starts with everyone in Native American brown face.
It's truly a film that wants to eat its cake and have it too, because it can't go as far as the play went. And therefore it's not interested in digging into anything deeper or analyzing itself. So yeah, it's just men behaving badly.
Yeah, very that. And it sucks because I've never seen the play, but it is a very interesting thing to, like, the concept of every summer men send away their wives and children off to like upstate and Hudson or whatever, and the men stay at home and work and like fuck around. I think that is interesting, and like I would love to like, let's show me the real fucking shit of these men who are fucking around. But like comedy and this woman who like literally has no name, and she's just like, and the way they make her play it, where it's like she's just so kind of like, what, me just walking in with my like robe and like, are you so tempted in these legs? And it's like, ugh, God, it's just cheap. It's cheap. But okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention that were like not?
No, I mean, I think River of No Return's real bad, but
Prince and the Showgirl.
Yeah, Prince and the Showgirl, not great either. And I think Let's Make Love is sort of somewhere in the middle ground of like not great, but also not horribly offensive, just excruciatingly long.
Yes.
But why don't we get out of our 1-star reviews and get into our 5-star reviews?
I think there are some moments in her career that are just like so astoundingly good and bright. Like it's truly wild to think like, what a fucking icon and legend do you have to be that it takes you just one movie to make such a fucking impact. My pick has to be 53's Jennifer Prefer Blondes. It's great. It is unparalleled. Like the level of sophistication to do these jokes and the style, the grace. There's one beautiful scene of Jane Russell and Marilyn just walking into a ballroom, and every fucking head turns, and they're just walking.
Yeah.
And it's just like gorgeous. I do have to say, the gay men who were dressing her.
I was literally just gonna say, and this is so shallow of me, best looking outfits of any film that she's ever been in.
Yeah, they were having a ball. This was directed by Howard Hawks. It's there was a stage musical, and you can tell.
But I think they like barely used anything from the stage musical. I think it's one of those where they're like, take the name.
We'll have the title.
Because in the stage musical, the Marilyn Monroe role was played by Carol Channing.
So not that. The movie is. First of all, I don't know why it's called Jennifer Prefer Blondes, because that really doesn't have anything to do with the story. The story of these two American showgirls who are getting on a boat to go do shows in Europe, and Marilyn's character, Lorelei Lee, she is the money-obsessed girly who loves all things sparkly. She's kind of, airheaded, ditzy girl, and her bestie, Dorothy. And Dorothy is the girl who tragically doesn't care about money, only cares about, like looks, I guess.
To quote the Music Man, the sadder but wiser girl.
Correct. And they're very different, but they like, it's funny, like Dorothy does kind of razz her a little bit, but it's always like with love, and like you never feel like she's condescending to her. And so Lorelei does have a fiance, Gus, who is wealthy. He's nervous about the girlies going on this boat because as they're getting on, an entire Olympic team is also getting on. We don't know what kind of Olympic team, but it's the Olympic team. And there are all these hot young men who are like, hubba, hubba. And what I love about this movie is like the girls are also like, hubba, hubba, fuck yeah, I want to be in a boat with all these hot guys. And so Gus is like, okay, well, fuck this. I'm sending a spy on the boat to make sure that Lorelai does not fuck around.
Yeah, that she stays faithful.
The spy, unbeknownst to Dorothy, they fall in love on the boat. On the boat, Lorelai gets really involved with this man who has diamond mines. He's like an old crusty dude who does have a wife. And it's just shenanigans ensue. And by the end of it, everything is resolved. Everything's fine. Everyone had a great time on the boat. It's just like the jokes are a mile a minute on this thing. It looks gorgeous. And Marilyn fucking just the characterization of the self and of Lorelai is just so perfect. This is the blueprint.
Yeah.
Period.
Dorothy, did you ever hear of a rich pole vaulter?
Maybe not, but who cares? I like a man who can run faster than I can.
I hate to think where you'll wind up. You're wasting all your time on unrefined persons without any money.
Honey, did it ever occur to you that some people just don't care about money?
Please don't be silly. We're talking serious. You don't want to end up with a loveless marriage, do you?
Me? Loveless?
That's right. Because if a girl's spending all of her time worrying about the money she doesn't have, how is she going to have any time for being in love? I want you to find happiness and stop having fun.
Is there anything more iconic than the Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend? I mean, people curb from that for everything. I mean, the fucking Harley Quinn movie.
Yeah.
Curbed for, it just is. You're right. It's
Moulin Rouge. Like, it's everything.
Madonna's Material Girl. Like, that is a great pick. And I'm glad you picked it. And I'm purposely tanking the poll this week because I have said in the past on the show, one of the things I like doing is when I see something that's really impressive, I like highlighting it. And so while I do think she's really great in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, I think she's very good in How to Marry a Millionaire. I think she's fantastic in Some Like It Hot. And actually, somebody recently told me that she's not that good in it. And I think I politely agreed so I wouldn't have to talk to them anymore. But I do not feel that way. But my 5-star review is going to be 1952's Don't Bother to Knock. It is... it's not, she's not doing the 4-quadrant Marilyn Monroe. She's not doing the musical numbers. She's doing this really inward looking, sad, scared woman who's not in full control of her own faculties, clearly experiencing or having an experience that nobody else is experiencing as well. I mentioned earlier that she's a woman who has just recently come out of being institutionalized. They don't really give you a big psychiatric explanation, whether exhaustion, depression, or if it is something deeper like schizophrenia. She's clearly living her own fantasy. She's babysitting this young girl in this hotel. She invites a man in. She thinks he's somebody else. This darkness ensues. She ties up this kid at one point. But you really understand that there's an innocence here that she's not fully in control of. It's just a really fascinating performance. I can't help but armchair psychology it and be like, what bit of this was her thinking about her own mother?
Yeah.
And having to deal with those own demons. It's so fascinating. She's so beautiful. Black and white. I'm shocked I did not pick a Technicolor film because I think she looks so good in Technicolor. But yeah, really fantastic. I did put the funniest clip up on our Instagram because Anne Bancroft.
Yeah. I saw that. Yeah, don't make me sing.
The second female lead, and she's the hotel singer. She's the entertainment, but she's like going through it, and then like has to just pick up her microphone and sing.
Well, I guess.
Yeah. But It's a very good movie. Like I said, I finished this movie and thought, like, this is a picture.
I love that. I love like a not often seen, a little rough, a deep cut for maybe people who know some of her bigger movies and can discover something new. I'll have to check it out.
You're just like my folks. You want me put away again?
Talk sense. It wasn't their fault. They didn't send you to that institution. The doctors did.
You're trying to keep Philip and me apart. Everybody bothers us. We're never alone for 5 minutes. You're like them. Call it a sin to be with a man, even to go to a picture show or a soda. I can't even see him without sneaking out.
Wait a minute.
Nobody's going to come between Philip and me.
Maybe not the most sensitive portrayal of mental illness because it is 1952, but it's trying for something, and it's very empathetic towards the situation she's in, even though the film really wants you to believe that she's capable of doing some kind of awful stuff.
Right. Throwing girlies out of the windows.
Attempted.
Yeah. Obviously, we've said the big hits that, really, I mean, the Misfits is perhaps the only other thing that I would say that is like not like the other girls. Maybe closer to Don't Bother to Knock, where it's just kind of a very emotional performance.
It's so funny too, because the Misfits is really a big outlier in terms of the types of roles that she plays, but still manages to get the sort of like the vulgar screen persona, as you will, during the scene in which she's doing like the paddle ball in the bar.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, of course, like you had to get it in.
I mean, and her like body is just on full display while she's like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that truly sort of defined her as an actor. She, the thing that she was on screen was female. Like that's all she was really allowed to do.
Right.
There's so much you could say about all of that stuff. It's all really, everybody's written a theory book about it.
Yeah. Yeah. But okay, let's do our mixed reviews review.
Our joint 1-star review, we both agreed that 1956's Bus Stop is pretty gutter.
Yes. My 5-star review was 1953's Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
And my 5-star review was 1952's Don't Bother to Knock. I love Don't Bother to Knock is such a tantalizing title for a movie that's not about that. Like, it's like, ooh, don't bother to knock.
Don't you dare bother to knock.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our fast forward. We talked a little bit about her legacy, and I think it's just like it really cannot be understated. Someone said, she has few rivals. Like it's Elvis and Mickey Mouse have been around like as long as she has, and continue to define Americanness.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. Actually, I can't think of. There's no other movie stars, because like Elvis isn't famous because he was a movie star.
Right.
Almost is famous because he's rock and roll. Like she is cinema personified, which is crazy because the reputation she's always had is that she wasn't a great actor, right? And that that she was sad, and she wasn't smart, and a lot of those things have obviously proven not to be true over time, but that doesn't stop the image that has been projected of her.
AFI named her as number 6 on their list of 50 greatest screen legends. It was 25 women, 25 men. Her number 6 counterpart was Henry Fonda.
Oh, who was number 1? Who was the number 1 woman?
The number 1 woman is Katharine Hepburn.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Acceptable. I'll take it.
It's funny because, I think there are a lot of critics who still would say that her filmography and her contribution as an actress is insignificant, really. And I just full-throatedly disagree, because even though she doesn't have a billion movies, like the cultural impact was just seismic,
Yeah.
With just the movies that she did make, and
she's truly like, and perhaps we didn't stress this enough, because you kind of can't talk about Marilyn Monroe without talking about the bad stuff, and that does sort of end up taking precedent. But like a comedic genius, truly, like truly brilliant, could take a line and apply the physicality to it that it needed, or twist it in some weird way. I mean, there's that little bit in Some Like It Hot when she's first introduced, and she like, her character's an alcoholic. Let's talk about it. But like, it's presented as like, oh, funny, whatever. And she's like, I can give up drinking at any time. It's just that I don't want to.
Right.
And like, it's such a throwaway thing, but the way that she does it, it's fascinating. Nobody else could do that.
Yeah, she really was just a master of using that sex, using that charisma, and injecting it into like everything she did. She was a woman in complete control of herself, and I think that's where the tension was. She knew exactly what she needed to do, and she was just like, why the fuck are these men telling me how I have to do these things?
There's a point where that becomes exhausting, which is not me saying like, and then you end up taking your life, but like there is a point where it's like, what do I have to do to prove to you people I know what's best for me?
Right. And I think like beyond all the conspiracies, beyond all of the conjecture and stuff, she was driven to self-medicate, and that, along with the men who were, like, I can't imagine. I think about this often when someone who is in mental crisis, and someone who as beautiful and successful as this person is, but who is in crisis and is coming to anybody for support or help, and all they can think of is like, well, what if we fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of person are you to see someone who is, popping pills and drunk all the time and be like, you know what this person needs? They just need me to fuck them. Like, that is psychotic fucking behavior. So fucking selfish. And like you said, if she needed friends, she needed a good friend. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like she had a lot of female friends, and all the men
it certainly does not. Yeah.
And all the men she had in her life were perhaps more interested in just having sex with her.
So it's not just that fame will go by. So long I've had you, fame. If it goes by, I told you it was fickle. Well, I hope we got something here. But please don't make me look like a joke.
But she would always shrug it off and do it with a laugh. She was always, the public persona was always going to be Teehee Marilyn sex bomb. But like, no one was curious about this woman. They thought she had just like kind of fucking arrived fully formed and was here for their pleasure.
Right.
It's so interesting seeing her movies, and it was such a unique experience watching these movies for the last 2 weeks, because her public persona and her acting characters, like, it was clear that Hollywood and the powers that be wanted one thing from her.
Right.
And because she was so fucking good at it.
A lot of these movies are really joyous. A lot of them are a beautiful reflection of, the acting. Her acting is a beautiful reflection of, I think, of who she was inside, regardless of how underwritten some of these roles are, or how like voyeuristic the camera is, and the male gaze that are on it. Like, she was a light, and it's hard to take that away from knowing how it ended.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like, the movies that we really gravitate to, it's just her fucking turning the charm up to 11, and she's singing, she's dancing, she's acting, she's like, doing and looking fucking snatched for the gods, like the outfits, the costumes, even in the small things like Monkey Business, which is like a nothing burger of a movie. Like, she is still this kind of like has this
gravitational pull.
Yeah, she is the sun.
Yeah,
like and who knows what she could have done if she had lived. My God, like the things that this woman had to endure.
Yeah.
And she was still able to deliver some of the most iconic performances of all time on film. Like, that's fucking legend, you know? And you know what? No one can take that away from her. And luckily we have these movies to, you know, enjoy for the rest of time.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And that's what people should focus on.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew Dominic. I still have not seen that movie. I'm not going to watch Blonde. No interest.
I'm not going to watch Blonde. So sorry, sweeties.
I think that wraps up Marilyn Monroe. It has been a wonderful, crazy year. We're going to come back in 2023 with our wrap up of 2022. Thank you all for listening so much.
Yes.
We really, really appreciate you. If you want to contact us, you can always find us on Twitter at The Mixed Reviews while Twitter lasts.
We're also on Facebook. Just write The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can write us at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're on Instagram at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to our past episodes, you can find us on a plethora of podcast apps. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Audible, Amazon, and starting this week, our back catalog has been uploaded to YouTube, audio only. So you would still have to go to our Patreon if you want to see the videos, starting with the Robert Zemeckis episode. We're doing video casts. Go to our Patreon, join us there. But yeah, if you want to watch us on YouTube, you can do that now, which is fun.
Yeah, and it's probably too late to get your stocking stuffers, but there is merch available at Redbubble. Just type in The Mixed Reviews. We're there. We have a lot of fun, gay, filmy things there.
Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe more merch in 2023. Who knows?
But yeah, like Gavin said, thank you guys so much. It's been a lovely year. I feel like we've done a lot this year, Gavin, both with the show, without the show. Like,
so much.